All right, educators, let's talk about the Cambridge IGCSE Mathematics 0580 syllabus. If you're teaching it, you're in the right place. Over the next few minutes, we're going to transform this syllabus from just a document into a powerful strategic tool for you and your students. Let's dive in. First off, let's just get a sense of the scale we're dealing with here. This isn't just some niche qualification. It is by far the world's most popular international math curriculum for this age group. We're talking over 4,500 schools in more than 140 countries. So yeah, you're part of a massive global community. And that really is the big question, isn't it? You've got all this content, all these different types of learners. So how do you actually navigate it all effectively? Well, that's exactly what we're about to break down. To get there, we need to start by kind of reframing how we look at the syllabus. Don't think of it as just a list of topics to get through. Think of it as a strategic roadmap for your entire course. And right at the very start of that roadmap, there's a huge fork in the road. And believe me, the choice you make right here is going to define the entire learning journey for every single one of your students. So, that fork in the road brings us to the most fundamental choice you have to make. Are your students going core or are they going extended? This is so much more than an administrative detail. It is absolutely central to your teaching strategy. On the surface, it seems pretty simple, right? The core tier is designed for students who are targeting grades from C down to G. The extended tier, on the other hand, is what opens up the path to those top grades, from an A star all the way down to an E. Now, what's really interesting is how the actual assessments reflect these different paths. You'll notice the extended papers are longer with more marks up for grabs. But here's the crucial thing, especially with the recent changes. Both tiers now have a non-calculator paper. That puts a whole new emphasis on mental math skills for absolutely everyone. And this quote really sums up the high stakes of this decision. Think about it. If you place a student in the core tier when they could have tackled extended, you've literally put a ceiling on what grade they can achieve. But if you push a student who's struggling into extended, you risk them just losing all their confidence and completely switching off. It's a really critical balancing act. Okay, so how do we make that critical decision with real confidence? Well, we have to go deeper than just looking at the topics. We need to actually decode the assessment blueprint itself. And that brings us to this things called assessment objectives, or AOs. You should think of these as the DNA of the exam. They aren't about what content is being tested, but how it's being tested. Every single question in that exam paper is built to assess one of these core skills.
And there are really two main ones to focus on. AO1, that's all about knowledge and technique. Recalling formulas, carrying out standard calculations. It's basically the doing the math part. But then you have AO2. This is about higher order thinking, analyzing problems, interpreting results, communicating your reasoning. This is the thinking like a mathematician part.
Okay, now this is probably the single most important strategic insight in the entire syllabus. Just look at the weighting. In the core tier, it's about 2/3 procedural skill. That's AO1. But in the extended tier, it completely flips on its head. The majority of marks, 55%, are for analytical and problem-solving skills, AO2. Knowing this literally changes everything about how you should prepare your students. So let's put this into practice. How does knowing about this AO weighting actually change the decisions we make in the real world, in our classrooms? So let's take a classic case study. You've got a student. They're scoring in that 65 to 75% range, right on that C grade borderline. They're pretty good with the procedures, but they struggle with some of the harder, extended-only topics. So what do? Well, the insight from that last slide gives us the answer. The extended tier actually rewards their ability to analyze and problem solve more than it penalizes their gaps in procedure. So the decision is clear. Choose extended. But, and this is key, have a plan to give them targeted support on those analytical skills. See how the AOs just made that tough decision for you? Of course, all of this strategy is built on the foundation of the 9 core content areas you see here. Everything from number to statistics. But what's really important to remember is that the syllabus gives you professional freedom. The content isn't in a set teaching order, which means you can and should sequence these topics in whatever way makes the most sense for your students. And speaking of that non-calculator paper, take a quick look at these questions. If you had to do them right now without a calculator, where would you slow down or maybe hesitate? It's a great little exercise because identifying your own thought process is a fantastic way to anticipate where your students are going to get stuck. Whew, okay, we have covered a lot of ground. So let's just boil all of this down into the core takeaways that you can start using in your planning tomorrow. It really all comes down to these three strategic pillars. Number one, know your tier. Really understand the structure and the stakes for core versus extended. Number two, know your AO weighting. Use it to guide your teaching focus. Are you building procedural fluency for core or analytical thinking for extended? And third, map to topics. Make sure every lesson you teach aligns back to one of those core content areas. And finally, just a few quick reminders to keep in your back pocket. Remember, you have total freedom in how you sequence the topics. There is a formula list provided in the exam, but it doesn't have everything on it. And the recommended guided learning time for the whole course is about 130 hours. So there you have it. We've unpacked the strategy behind the syllabus. We've seen how the structure, the tiers, and those all-important assessment objectives all click together to give you a clear blueprint for success. So the only question left is, now that you have the roadmap, which student's journey are you going to map out first?